You know, for a kid, growing up entirely too fast isn't some badge of honor. It's a profound, heartbreaking clinical reality. Welcome to today's Explainer. For those of you out there studying psychology, getting ready to step into the clinical field, listen, we have a truly essential topic to unpack today. We're looking at the clinical reality of parentification. Throughout this explainer, we're going to explore both the visceral, lived experience and the objective clinical realities of a childhood that was basically hijacked by necessity. As a future clinician, grasping this isn't just about memorizing a textbook definition. It's about deeply understanding the entire architecture of a stolen childhood.
I want you to step into the shoes of a seasoned child therapist for a second here. Really immerse yourself in the somatic, atmospheric experience of your future clients. You'll find they often remember the origin of their trauma not as some clear chronological story, but as a feeling, a quiet, irreversible click, a sudden realization of, if I don't hold this together, literally no one will. Maybe it was the night they saw a parent crying in the kitchen, completely failing to hide it. Or maybe it was just a heavy, suffocating silence in the house. In that exact moment, the child recognizes the chaos. And to survive it, well, they adapt. They get quieter, they get hyper-alert, and they become infinitely more careful.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our clinical roadmap for today. We'll start by defining clinical parentification, look at the rewired nervous system, and uncover the mask of competence. Then we'll shift gears from understanding the origins of the trauma to actually treating it, walking through a structured 3-phase therapeutic recovery plan. Phase 1, grieving loss safety. Phase 2, building emotional autonomy. And finally, Phase 3, reclaiming authentic identity. All right, starting us off with Section 1, defining clinical parentification. Clinically speaking, parentification is exactly what it sounds like. It's a complete, though often very quiet, family role reversal. The child is simply no longer the one being cared for. Instead, they become the primary caregiver. This dynamic fundamentally shifts a child's development. I mean, they are forced to become the functional adult in the room way before they have the developmental capacity to actually do so. In doing this, they don't just lose their childhood. They literally lose the blueprint of who they were originally supposed to become. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we categorize this trauma into two distinct areas. First, there's instrumental parentification. These are the highly functional tasks. Think making meals, handling household bills, completing chores that are far beyond their age. But then there's emotional parentification. This one is way more invisible. It's when the child becomes the family peacekeeper, serving as a silent container for chaos. They're forced to absorb devastating feelings, anxieties, and tensions that simply aren't theirs to carry. Let's move on to Section 2, the rewired nervous system. To really understand the biology here, we have to contrast how these individuals experience the world. A child with a regulated nervous system feels safe, relaxed, and present in their environment. But a child dealing with parentification, they develop a hyper-aware nervous system. They don't just walk into a room casually. Their body is instantly collecting data. They're constantly scanning for tension, listening to the exact weight of footsteps, measuring the silence. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a simple sigh could mean a massive argument is coming. Because chaos felt so dangerous, their nervous system adapted by living in a constant, exhausting state of readiness. This brings us to an absolutely crucial truth for your practice. When stress becomes your baseline, your system actually misreads peace as danger. Crazy, right? But these clients are biologically wired for survival, not for stillness. Over time, all that constant scanning rewired something deep inside them. So when they're sitting right there in your office and things are quiet and safe, their bodies actually feel profoundly unsafe because true peace feels completely unfamiliar and utterly threatening to a system that was built for chaos. Now for Section 3, the mask of competence. The world totally praised these children early on. People saw how well-behaved they were and smiled with admiration, telling them, "Oh, you're so mature for your age," or "You're such an old soul." We've all heard that, right? Well, as a therapist, you must compassionately reframe this external praise. You have to help them see, you didn't grow up, you adjusted. That calm, composed exterior was a trauma adaptation just to keep their fragile environment from collapsing. They silenced their true edges simply to survive. Notice how this brilliantly illustrates the long-term consequences of that mask. It creates this invisible equation where worth equals utility. The child absorbs the devastating rule that they are only valuable when they are useful to others. So what do? They shrink to fit whatever the moment requires. They erase their personal boundaries. Ultimately, they become someone who is incredibly easy to handle and consequently, really easy to ignore. because nobody ever thought to ask what all this maturity was actually costing them.
Let's transition into treatment. Phase 1, grieving lost safety. These are the 3 phases you will deliberately guide your patients through. Step 1, grieving lost childhood. Step 2, practicing emotional autonomy. And step 3, reclaiming authentic identity. Let's zoom in on phase 1.
For these clients, healing does not begin with becoming stronger. Trust me, they are already entirely too strong. Healing begins with feeling the grief for the safety you didn't have. You have to explain to your clients that they must first be allowed to mourn. They have to mourn the comfort they were completely denied and the childhood they traded for survival. Before they can build an authentic self, they've got to grieve the fact that they were never allowed to be a child in the first place. Next up, phase 2, building emotional autonomy. So, once that grief is processed, we move to actionable reparenting steps that your clients can practice to separate their current safety from their past trauma. First, teach them to just pause during rising anxiety instead of pushing it away. Second, have them actively remind themselves, you are safe now. Third, consciously drop the burden of carrying everything for everyone else. And finally, practice this reparenting specifically in small, quiet moments. You know, those exact moments their nervous system tries to tell them they are in danger. And finally, phase 3, reclaiming authentic identity. I want you to pause and just let the weight of this terrifying reflection prompt sit with you. Who am I if I'm not needed? When there's no crisis to manage and literally no one to save, these clients feel a quiet, deeply unsettling emptiness. As their therapist, you absolutely must validate that emptiness. You must hold space for how scary it is to realize they built a whole life where they were immensely reliable, but they never got the chance to build an actual self. True recovery means slowly, patiently building an identity based on personal preference and authenticity. Healing is uncovering the person they never got to be. The goal is to help them find what brings them peace, not because it's somehow useful to someone else, but simply because it's theirs. It is all about stripping away that relentless need to be functional. In your practice, you're going to need to model profound, validating language to counteract years of trauma. You must look at these clients and assure them, you are allowed to exist exactly as you are. You have to teach them that they don't have to earn love through relentless effort, utility, and self-sacrifice anymore. It is finally time for them to let that heavy mask go. And that brings us right to our conclusion. I really want to leave you with this provocative thought to challenge you as you step into your clinical careers. How will you hold space for these hidden, silent struggles in your future clinical practice? I strongly encourage you to take these structured insights and apply them deeply. Now, if this explainer spoke to you, please consider subscribing to our series so we can keep exploring more clinical concepts together. Share your thoughts in the comments on how you plan to help patients uncover their true selves, because the more we understand these quiet struggles, the more visible our clients become. Thank you so much for joining me to learn today, and I will see you in the next explainer.